Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, then a little introduction. This is Alicia shares stories, adventures, and everything I wish I'd known before embarking on them. My name is Rena, and you're watching From Fiji to Here. The final video of this series has come. Trimester 4, otherwise known as postpartum. There's quite a lot of things I want to cover in this video, and a lot of it is things I wish I knew or were just more talked about. So it didn't, I don't know, in some cases feel as isolating as I felt sometimes. So you've had a baby and you're either back at home or maybe even still in the hospital recovering. Postpartum is often defined as those first 6 weeks after birth, and in some cases that may be true, but postpartum can last much longer, and in a way, it'll always be postpartum. That being said, let's go through the topics based on exactly that. What will end usually first and what lasts a little longer. So whether you've had a baby via C-section or vaginally, you're going to deal with postpartum bleeding. Now this normally dissipates around that 6-week mark. If you have concerns about how heavy it is, how light it is, bring it up with your healthcare practitioner. No question is a silly question, especially if it's beyond that 6-week mark. It's worth bringing it up. Breastfeeding. If you choose to breastfeed, please know that it does not always come naturally. Sometimes it takes time and patience and practice and hard work. Like, it's exhausting sometimes. The pictures in like the pamphlets and whatnot make it look easy, but in the beginning, it can just be difficult. Elisa had her days and her nights flipped, which after significant weight loss, we ended up having to put her on a schedule to wake up and feed her every 2 hours. So it didn't matter if she was sleeping, like in the middle of sleep, we had to wake her up and feed her. And sometimes that meant like completely declothing her just to stimulate her enough to wake up enough to feed. Just to put in perspective, like if you're waking them up to feed them every 2 hours, by the time they eat and they're put back to sleep, that means that you're awake every like hour and a half. Like the max sleeping time you're going to get is an hour and a half stretch. And like those first few days, it took a while for my milk to come in. This isn't something that's uncommon with C-section mamas versus vaginal delivery mamas. Sometimes your milk does take a little longer to come in. Things that like I did to kind of help relieve as we worked through this struggle is like nipple shields came in handy just to give myself a bit of a like relief while breastfeeding. We also did do some pumping and bottle feeding for 1 feeding a day to allow me more than an hour and a half stretch of sleep. Especially if you've had a C-section and you're also trying to like recover from a major surgery. I mean, even vaginal delivery, like you're recovering too. All that being said, with time, Elisa went on to breastfeed until probably like 20 months, I think. So if it's something you feel strongly about, get the resources and the services you need to help support that. You don't have to go it alone, especially if your hospital provides a lactation consultant. Like just say yes from the get-go. And then if you end up not needing it, great. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like at the end of the day, if you don't know if your baby is going to be allergic to like a gazillion things and that you now have to cut out like dairy, soy, and whatnot. Like I think one of the big things that people need to remember is that like for a family, like for baby to be happy, the main thing is to be raised in a happy environment. So if you're making a decision, it has to work for the family unit. It has to work for the lifestyle you guys have. Use that to your own, and like ultimately it's your life, your kid, your decision. As we kind of touched on it with breastfeeding, sleep deprivation. Now, this gets mentioned a lot when people talk about newborns, but what's not talked about as much is how long it lasts, the actual number of people who co-sleep and how to do so safely, and responsive sleep learning, or the pause. Often I'll hear people talk about how after those first 12 weeks, babies start sleeping longer stretches and they'll sleep through the night by 6 months. The reality is this isn't all cases. So I think like we felt super alone when Elisa was still waking like multiple times a night to feed, wouldn't sleep in her crib until like it was, everything was contact naps up until 4 months, contact naps. We were co-sleeping, just like everything. And a lot of parents, like from doing a little more in-depth research, A lot of parents are still dealing with night wakings up until their child's about a year old. And as I said, babies feed every 2 to 3 hours in that newborn stage. So if you figure between waking up, getting up, feeding the baby, that in itself, especially in the beginning, can take up to 30 minutes. Getting the baby back to sleep, you're maybe getting an hour to an hour and a half increments of sleep, and that can lead to wild sleep deprivation, which is why I highly encourage you to not make any life-changing decisions during this time. You're in survival mode. Like, things aren't going to be ideal and perfect. You are in survival mode. Second is give yourself and your partner some grace in those first few weeks while you learn to cope, and pray that your little one starts sleeping longer stretches. In the meantime, I do want to point out that a large number of families, even those that don't admit it or don't publicly say it, end up co-sleeping with their infants during these first few months. Even if they didn't plan on it, like I was not planning in any way, shape, or form of co-sleeping. If you're falling asleep in a chair while holding your baby, it is more dangerous to be doing that than to be co-sleeping in your bed. Now, I'm not saying ignore the recommendations and things like that. I'm solely saying take precautions if you do have to. Like if you do end up needing to co-sleep, whether it's for one night or multiple, whatnot. Don't co-sleep with blankets or pillows or loose bedding around baby. You're going to want a firm mattress, and obviously no use of drugs or alcohol for those that are sharing a bed with baby. Elisa would literally only sleep in our arms or our arms, the baby carrier on us, or the stroller for the first 4 months of life. The danger of the sleep deprivation was greater than the danger of us being able to sleep while bed sharing. This leads me to my third point, responsive sleep learning, or the pause, which is something I wish I had learned sooner than I did. A book that recommends it and kind of talks more in depth is Bringing Up Baby. But essentially, it highlights the importance of observing before acting. Babies go through waves of active and passive sleep cycles, and there are times that they will cry or flail their arms, and as they get older, that they'll roll. And then if your kid's like Elisa, there's times that she'll move all over the bed, and they're still asleep while doing this. So what am I getting at here? Just that when your baby cries, take a minute to watch them before just jumping up and grabbing them out of the bed. I'm saying this as someone who was instantly picking her up and soothing her and not acknowledging that she might not actually be awake, and me picking her up and soothing her, me picking her up to try and stop the crying, would actually wake her up and cause her to be more upset. So you know your kid best. Obviously babies have different types of cries, but I'm just saying I'm not saying 10 minutes even, especially in that first newborn stage. But maybe just give them 10 seconds, observe them. Are their eyes open? Are they actively in pain or frustrated or whatnot? Often by giving them this chance to kind of resettle themselves from the beginning, or it might not even be resettling themselves. If they're still asleep, they're still asleep. They might just stop crying themselves within that 15-second time frame. And then as your child gets older, that time will lengthen. And yeah, I mean, now, we're at a stage now, because Elisa, like I said, is a very active sleeper, where there are times that she might be crying out at night, but you can, we'll look at the monitor, and if she's still laying, there, often when we go in, she's asleep. It's more detrimental to wake her from that, than to let her work it out. In all, I'm just saying, try practicing the art of observing before reacting. It'll help set your child up for better sleep hygiene. The lack of sleep and constant needs of baby can lead to some trying mental health situations, which often go undiagnosed, or people are just not aware of how long postpartum can actually show up. Postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety are two of the most common mental health diagnoses during the 4th trimester, and they can be diagnosed right up until a year postpartum. A year, not 6 weeks. Your hormones are all over the place during this time, and that imbalance can sometimes lead to darker times. If you are watching this video before delivery, I strongly recommend that you and your partner and your support team are informed about the signs and symptoms that often come with postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety, because sometimes you you won't see them yourself first. And it would be great if you're all on board to, get the resources that you need that are available to you. Which leads me into the perfect segue moment of ask for help. Not just accept the help that's offered, but be willing to be vulnerable and ask for it. Whether that means going to your doctor for a follow-up visit, for a referral for mental health, or a pelvic floor therapist, or if it means hiring cleaners to clean your house, or a night nurse to help with some of the night feedings. Do you have family and friends nearby that you could ask for them to come once a week, kind of consistently, so that during that time you'll have time to have a shower? Or maybe see if someone can set up a meal train. That's a great idea for a baby shower. Ask for the help that you think or know you're going to need, whether it be professional or through family and friends, and do it. This rolls nicely into the final point. Do it without feeling mom guilt. This is a big one for me. And again, this is one of those things that it's always postpartum. I am always battling with feeling mom guilt, even when I know logically I shouldn't. This guilt when I can't do it all, and society has painted it as though everyone else can. The truth is that society has no idea what it's talking about. If you speak to any mom out there for more than 5 minutes, especially those that you think are doing it all, you'll find out the truth that maybe they have a cleaner helping with the house chores, or they're doing grocery delivery, or they have family or friends nearby that consistently take their kids so that they can have some me time. Or maybe they have after school care, before and after school care, so that they can finish getting their work done. There are some, maybe they don't do arts and crafts in their house because they need to protect their own mental sanity. Maybe, I don't know, there's a million other possibilities here. I don't have the answers on how to fix getting rid of mom guilt. It's a constant battle that I'm fighting myself, but I do think that the first step is acknowledging when it pops up and telling it to back off. Doubled with mom guilt comes mom shaming, which is rooted in labels such as breastfeeding or formula feeding, co-sleeping or bed sharing. And with every label, there tends to be these cliques that form, kind of high school cliques. And it can be beneficial for support group matters, but also detrimental to the overarching motherhood community. Now, I know we can't get rid of the labels. They'll always be there, especially the ones that have a purpose for healthcare reasons. What we do need to do is lower their value. Focus more on the big picture and the emotions that are mutually felt through the new stage of motherhood, and bond together based on the fact that we're all trying to thrive while keeping our kids alive. In a world where less and less people are having kids, we need to get back to the basics and just celebrate each other for having the courage to do this parenting thing. I'm going to wrap it up there with welcoming arms that if you ever need a shoulder to lean on, a friend to vent to, if you're looking for non-judgmental advice, I'm here. As for this series, however, it has come to an end. So we'll get back to our travel content. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button to be notified of more like it. And remember, life is what happens between the plans that you make. Bye, guys.